So the second speaker is Dr. Eric Jarvis. And let's hope this biography is up to date. You'll correct me if wrong. I should have, yeah, we should have contacted you before. Anyways, Dr. Jarvis is Associate Professor of Psychiatry in the Division of Social and Transcultural Psychiatry, McGill University, and Director of the Cultural Consultation Service and the Culturally Focused Early Psychosis Program at the Jewish General's Culture and Mental Health Research Unit. He has been conducting in-depth cultural consultations of immigrants and refugees since 1999. His research interests include the cultural adaptation of mental health services, linguistic barriers in mental health care, and religion and mental health. He is the editor-in-chief of the journal Transcultural Psychiatry. There we go. And is chair of the Canadian Psychiatric Association's Transcultural Psychiatry section, and he writes about the history of psychiatry. So we're pleased to welcome Dr. Jarvis.
Good. Okay. Thank you. What a pleasure to be here, to be invited to come back and speak again with my esteemed colleagues, my mentors, really. So, one quick correction. I'm very bad at promoting myself. But I was promoted to full professor earlier this year. So I haven't told anybody. Here it is. It's coming out here now. Happened around the time my father died. So I was a little preoccupied, I guess. I didn't maybe tell anybody about that. So I'm telling you now, okay, this is how it goes. I always want to do a land acknowledgement just to express my gratitude for our Indigenous brothers and sisters who have been on this land for so long and have been forced to give us this opportunity to be here today and use it for various purposes. These are my meager disclosures. We have some funding from Health Canada, New Frontiers and Research Fund, but I really have to express gratitude, the organizers of this conference, for my team, the Culturally Focused Early Psychosis Program here at the Jewish General, for all of you who have let us interview your patients and harass you endlessly over the last few years for this purpose. We have collaborators, active collaborators at the Douglas, the SHUM and the MUHC also, which have really, and also our community partners. We'll talk about them today. So this is in honor of them today. I'm going to tell you really, I hope to talk about how we're trying to make bridges. I have 20 minutes, right? 20. Oh. I'm going to tell you, I hope to show how we're trying to make bridges between our services and the communities we're trying to serve and serve better. So here are our learning objectives. Now I have to tell a little bit about my background. I think I'm a little bit remiss. I'm not very transparent. So I grew up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Edmonton, Alberta, for most of my life. I have American roots. My community was very tight-knit, very insular, and everyone was white in my community. I didn't know any minority people except for one Japanese student that went to my school. His parents had been sent to Alberta during World War II. And so that was the extent of my connection to people from other places. But when I was a young man, I volunteered to serve a mission to Paris, France. I was plopped into the middle of cosmopolitan Paris. And for the first time in my life, I made very close friends with people from Africa, from the Caribbean, and other places, and it really changed my life. And I heard what their problems were. We talked, we worked together, we talked for long periods of time, and I saw what they were going through with the difficulties, the social problems, the racism. So when I became a resident, I stumbled on this paper. It said high rates of schizophrenia in Black people. And I just didn't understand how that could be. I didn't understand what they meant by that. And I've been trying to work that out for 30 years. To understand what people have meant. And also to think of my friends. I guess I've tried to figure it out for my friends. It's kind of how psychologically I think I've been working on this. So a lot of the things I'll be talking to you about are about Black communities in Montreal. Now, assumptions about psychosis, we know it's sort of, most people assume it to be a biomedical problem, a neurochemical problem, and so forth. Such an illness kind of requires swift intervention with all the science we can muster to help people. But there are alternate views. Many people from different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, migrant backgrounds, may view have these biomedical beliefs. To them, it may come across as being strange, suspicious. They may have disdain or even laugh at some of what we consider to be very important uh, explanations about psychosis and the associated treatments. So because of this, and I know most of you know this, minority youth and their families have engaged less with psychosis services, despite being, as I mentioned earlier, diagnosed with more psychotic symptoms, more psychotic disorders. Now, I, I mean, I need to save time, I guess, by talking. I want to save time for the actual community work, but these are just some summaries of some of the problems certain communities might face. I guess for members of Black communities, it would tend to be a problem of mistrust of services for very valid historical reasons, histories of oppression. Members of South Asian communities may seek the help of traditional healers before receiving medical treatments. They experience severe stigma of psychosis and other mental health problems, which might lead to underuse of services. What about members of Arab Muslim communities? It's a growing community in Montreal and is the third ethnicity in terms of numbers in Montreal area. Many may seek chronic healing for psychosis or may have chronic explanations for mental health problems. They may have cultural and religious beliefs like jinn, black magic, and evil eye, which can even be mistaken for psychosis by some clinicians. So these are some of the problems people may face and that we see every day if we're paying attention in our clinical and research practices. Now, one of the studies we've tried to conduct is to adapt family psychoeducation or family education to be more acceptable to the family members of diverse communities. Generally speaking, culturally adaptive family psychoeducation is a very helpful intervention. Family education itself is a very important intervention, and it confers better outcome on people with psychosis and psychotic disorders. But if you can culturally adapt even a part of family psychoeducation intervention, it usually is linked with these kinds of better outcomes. The problem is, back in 2020, 2019, and 20, we were kind of laying the foundation from some of our research. We noticed an enormous treatment gap. Whereas we had maybe 20 to 25% of our population were from Black communities in our early psychosis programs at the Douglas and the Jewish General, we noticed that maybe 5% of the family members attending family psychoeducation seminars were from Black communities. So we thought this is a real treatment gap. What's happening? I mean, I assumed the problem was with me, with our teams, with how we were doing these kinds of programs. So this is going a bit more into what I said already. I think you already know culturally adapted for sepsis psychosis programs. No one's really attempted to completely adapt an entire early psychosis program, but little parts of it, maybe like CBT interventions or family psychoeducation. If you can do that, it's linked to these kinds of outcomes. The hope is that by paying attention, cultural context, minority youth with first episode psychosis will have more positive experiences with the care they receive, develop better treatment alliances and adherence, and overall improve treatment outcomes. This is kind of the hope why we're doing this work at all, I guess. So here's our research goals. I'm just checking the time. Okay. So over the last several years, we have been hoping to culturally adapt family education for first episode psychosis. Excuse I'm a little bit, my braces in, it's kind of causing me a bit of slurring speech. Second thing was to imagine together what first episode psychosis services more broadly would look like for minority youth and their families. What would be an acceptable format or form or content? And to imagine together with members of the communities that we serve. This was kind of our great hope. And we actually got funded to do this, which was sort of a once in a lifetime chance. Further down the line, we would hope in future studies to empower members of minority communities in Montreal in partnership with clinicians and researchers to co-create, develop, and implement novel services adapted to these communities. Our methods have been mixed, mostly qualitative, multi-site. We've partnered with the Douglas, as I say, the SHIM and the MUHC. Most of the work has been done in the Jewish General, but we're very grateful for our collaborators. The Clinique Jap and Amal Abdoubaki and her team have been very helpful to introduce us to the French world of cultural psychiatry and early psychosis intervention. We use narrative-based interviews of patients, family and community members, focus groups with patients, family and community members, and clinicians. We try to be community-based. Our work is based somewhat in hospitals and clinics. We're trying to push our efforts out from there, and we've adopted a co-creation approach. Was that the next one? Yeah, it is. Okay. So a couple of novel approaches, maybe not so novel, I'm not sure. We feel we've made some progress. We've established what we call a co-creation committee. A co-creation committee is where we, the research team, and our collaborating community partners sit down once a month and review the entire research project. How is it going? What are the dilemmas? What are the decisions that have to be made? How do we interpret data? How do we change our interviews? How do we conduct focus groups? So we're getting direct input on a continuous basis from people that we're working with. And we hold these meetings, sometimes online, but sometimes in community venues. So at the Côte-des-Neiges Black Community Association, the Jamaica Association of Montreal, the Presbyterian Church of Côte-des-Neiges. So we try to hold these meetings in situ in the places not in the hospital, which we've held a couple here, regrettably. We didn't really want to. We had to on occasion, okay? So anyway, this is what I'm saying. We're trying to push things out towards the community and really try to rethink. I mean, it's so hard to rethink our services. Oh, wow, it's difficult, but it is possible to do. I think we're making some progress. Another thing we've tried to do, another new intervention, is having cultural awareness seminars. So these are every month. They're for the clinicians primarily of our aligned early psychosis programs in Montreal. So we invite them to these sessions. We have amazing speakers like Jude Mary Sina, for example. We're having one right now. I'm missing one. By a fourth-year resident, Valérie Chomba. He's speaking today on an aspect of Black mental health. So these are topics that are hopefully clinically relevant. Because we're focusing on Black communities at the moment, they mostly have to do with issues of Black families, access to services, understanding of psychosis, depression, trauma, and so on. So anyway, we videotape and record these, and they're available online on our website. A few results. I was very pleased to be able to have some quantitative findings from when we worked hard for a few years to culturally adapt psychoeducation for psychosis, for family members of people with psychosis. Just to show you a little bit about what we found here. For all patients, approach for interviews in this particular study, N equals 71. Attendance at follow-up sessions with the team were better, significantly better, statistically significantly better, and medication adherence improved in those whose family members were exposed to family psychoeducation. So this is kind of just backing up the world literature. We already kind of know this. But a little further in, among those whose family members attended family psychoeducation, we're getting into small numbers now. Culturally adaptive family education, as opposed to the standard version, was associated with less compulsory treatment and fewer ER visits for patients since admission to the CFEB, or early psychosis program. In addition, the cumulative number of relapses was less in those whose family members attended culturally adapted family education. So we were very pleased that we had some actual quantitative studies from our mixed method study from a couple of years ago, which is we're still analyzing all this data. And this is we just finished this a couple of weeks ago. But the bulk of our interventions, the bulk of our attempts to change have been on a qualitative community level. So we try to become involved in community events. We had a project kickoff, for example, at the Jamaica Association a couple of years ago. We've attended the Karama Sizzle, Jamaica Day last 2 years. We've attended religious meetings, and we've been invited to present at the Black Healing Center, just to give you an example of a few things. So let's talk about a couple of them. The kickoff event at the Jamaica Association of Montreal was a very warm event. We talked about ping pong, a lot of things that were important to people there, and we made some good friends. We met Cynthia Waith of the Barbados House, Sharon Nelson of the Jamaica Association, Myrna Lashley was there. Many other esteemed colleagues and students were there as well. We've moved some of our focus groups into the community as well. So, for example, at the Côte-des-Neiges Black Community Association, our most recent focus group was held. They were gracious to give us this space, and it's a better venue, I think, to have a more authentic conversation. The Karama Sizzle 2025. So we had, yeah, I know, I'm sorry. We have limited photo, anyway. But this was, what we did was we tried a new approach. We had people come and just write about how they felt about mental health, this kind of thing. And it was really interesting. And what would help them to have better mental health? People would write things like prayer, Jesus will love you, my family is important, love everyone. These very open, nice conversations. And it wasn't me who was conducting these. We had other people there that were helping. I'm stand out a little bit in an odd way in these events, I find. And I'll give you a story about that in just a second, if I have time. Now, one of our other kind of qualitative results was culturally adapted posters for our events. We never thought this would be an issue. On the left is the traditional culture and mental health poster, okay? And then we invited some of our Black colleagues to send their posters to us, and we had a very different approach to the posters. It was very helpful to us. It was a very different style, and it reached out to people in a different way, including the gold and green of Jamaica, the colors of Jamaica, for example. Yeah, okay. Kamini's noticing that. Sorry. So this was very helpful. These are just parts of the steps we're trying to take and learn as we go along. We also began to receive some referrals of patients out of the regular process. So this is an example. Hello, Dr. Jarvis. I hope all is well. I'm writing to introduce you to Mrs. A. I spoke to you about yesterday. You and I spoke about her son and so on and so forth. Let me know if you have any questions. They wanted to make a referral. At first I thought, oh, I can't, this is outside the normal process. And then I realized, wait a minute, this is it. This is what we were looking for. Actually, having people trust us enough to start to refer people to us directly. This was amazing. So we made some space for this person to be seen. And specifically, I mentioned at the end of this, when I was speaking to our administrative assistant, she's afraid of the police, so doesn't want to call 911 or go to the ER. So she wants to have a personal triage with someone she trusts. This is so important, so important. It seems like a small thing. It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. As an outsider to the community, I mean, this is really something to be an honor, an honor. What about improving clinical spaces? This is from a recent focus group that we conducted. We're constantly wanting to know, what are we doing that's off, that's wrong, that's a little bit askew, that's really askew. So here are some suggestions. Have more visible minority clinicians. This is a mention towards people like me, maybe. Have more clinicians open to LGBTQ plus communities. Interesting. White clinicians need to be curious, listen, and ask. Have a Black peer worker. Have designated members of the Black communities help with access to visits and follow-up care. Consider inviting Black young adults with psychosis to the clinic with their family members to a get-together or educational session with food. See, there's a movement towards informal and less stuffy kinds of activities. The clinic could resemble a community organization, integrate spirituality and ancestral knowledge. We have the problems. We also have the answers. Food to heal, dancing. Women don't feel safe in the psychiatric ER. Okay, everybody knows already that our ER is a huge problem. So that was it's coming from real people now, not just us commenting. So, okay. We have a support group for families. We started because we realized the families need more and peer kind of intervention. The last meeting, all 3 participants in the group were from cultural minorities, which was a first, and we hope a symbol of evolving trust among family members to trust what we have to offer. Now, we have a few minutes left. These are just a few things. You had a thing there for a few minutes? Okay, I was still learning from community partners. So this is an active, ongoing evolution. There's so much I don't know, so much we're still trying to understand. How can I psychologically help my friends is sort of maybe my motivation, but I come across the wrong way, I'm sure, many times, inadvertently, as do members of our team. So one thing we're learning is the timing, when to speak, when to do something. So we went to Karama Sizzle in 2024, and somehow I got invited to give this talk. Okay. Oh, I wanted to play this for you. Hold on. Can I click on this? Oh, yeah, maybe. This is what it's like at Karama Sizzle. Yeah. It's amazingly vibrant. It's a celebration. It's 7 Caribbean communities. They come in from a parade and they flood into the park. And I was asked to give a talk on mental health in this setting. And there I am on the bottom right. I really felt it was very awkward, and and it just wasn't the right venue. And I spoke to Myrna Lashley. She said, "Yeah, Eric, you're right. That was a little bit of an awkward situation." So I kind of said, thank you. So the next year we kind of revised everything we did, right? So we went back, we had that booth this time. We had a much more interactive approach, one-on-one. It was not me getting up and this, it was really, oh. So anyway, I just want, so sometimes we're learning timing, when to speak, when not to speak. And honestly, for patient care, this is a really important thing as well. I mean, how often are we trying to say something and people are in this other frame of mind, right? They have the Karamas sizzle frame of mind, and we're trying to tell them something and it's not getting there at all. It's totally missing the boat. So I've used this many times clinically and in research interviews too. Oh, sorry, whoops. Okay. What about names and words? So we had to change our wording because it offended some of our partners. So we started off our group, research group, as the Culture, Psychosis, and Society team. We had long discussions. The word society just didn't work for some people. So we had to kind of come up with a new one, culture, community, and psychosis. And we added an information network. This is kind of for our website. So we dropped the word society, replaced with community. And in fact, if I write in society, if you Google it, Black society, community often comes up. So I think it's just a word that fits better with most people we've been working with anyway. And maybe we're wrong. I don't know, but this is locally our discussions went this direction on the co-creation committee. We even changed the name of our psychosis service from first episode psychosis program to culturally focused early psychosis program. The reason was people didn't like first episode. It had a huge implication. Something bad was going to happen next. Okay, what happens to the second? So we said, okay, let's just modify. So we talked a long time and modified, and now we've changed that name too. So these are words we take for granted, may not be appropriate. Okay, so we're still learning this. Attention to religion and spirituality is very important for many, many people that we work with. So this is like a little sub-study that one of the students did just to show you that among the people you're seeing in your clinics or in other settings, a lot of people are affiliated believers, non-affiliated believers, and they attribute an importance to their religious life, to their recovery from psychosis. So really, as clinicians, we need to be asking about this much more than we are. It's very important. We need to ask about their belief in God, practices like prayer and attending religious services. And religion and spirituality can be leveraged in clinical settings to improve patient outcomes for those who have an active affiliation and an active belief. Obviously, for those who are non-believers, it's a different matter. Just want to play this quickly. I know we're running out of time. This is one thing we're working on as well is cultural safety and belonging, whether it's in research interviews, reconfiguring our clinical services, or actual clinical care. This was from one of our community member focus groups.
Yeah, I think the back home is going back to, hopefully a safe place where there's a lot of positive things that can help to reinforce someone. Whereas a lot of times here, I was not born here. When I came here, I could feel, the huge difference between what it was like back home and what it was like here, and the challenges and the racism, For example, when I came here, I didn't even think of myself as a Black person, It was here that, I started to realize, hey, I'm a Black person and I'm Black and I'm proud, you know what I mean? So there are a lot of stressors that exist here, and that may not exist in the same way in quote unquote back home. That can be, even for folks that live here, when they go back home, it's usually time to breathe out and relax. And people usually come back looking refreshed and ready to go again, go another round. I'm done.
Yeah, and he's such a nice person and framed it in such a nice way, but I just realized with sorrow the predicament that people find themselves in. I've never faced, and it's just something you have to use all the empathy and imagination you have you're in possession of to try to imagine what's going on around you to people. People have very different experiences. Having to live with that burden is just, he's kindly and friendly and joking, but think about what it means. That's what we're working on, cultural safety
Yeah, I think
and belonging. Less formal and more, this is the last one we're getting to, and then I'll be finished. Less formal and more personal style. We're working on this in our services. In family education about psychosis, who are we? Self-disclosure, winning trust. We're trying to use storytelling as a way to convey information, a way to tell experiences. We have personal testimonials now of patients come into the psychoeducation process. We have family members tell their experience if they're willing. So storytelling is very important. In clinical and research interactions, a certain friendliness, casual humor can be very helpful for a lot of members of migrant communities or anyone for that matter. One of my patients recently had a very difficult time. He wanted to come and review the reports about him for racist comments. We spent time, it's an ongoing process. He started to joke about something, we started laughing. It really helped the whole situation. We only got through 1 or 2 pages of the report, but he wants to come back. He was grateful for the process. So this is an important aspect, an important dilemma we're working to improve. So we connect with us. We have a Facebook page, we have a website, we have every 3-month newsletter. Only by addressing these kinds of cultural attitudes towards psychosis and mental health services can we hope to co-create culturally adapted and accessible programs free of exclusion, friendly to the diversity of our modern society. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jarvis, for wonderful talk. Were there any questions in the audience? It's not a reflection of lack of interest. I think people might want to warm up. So let's see here. Stop. Yeah, Jamaica. let's see here, chat. Yeah, I mean, oh, yes, John.
Thank you for this work, Eric. I'm curious. I know Myrna has done work with the police in the past. I'm curious if you're doing work with police and also with emergency entry points for folks like RER.
You know, difficult key junctures. Yeah, actually, we are starting to work with the police now for our cultural awareness seminar for clinicians. We're inviting a member of the police force to give a talk to clinicians about the process, what happens. We have a Black member of the police force who's going to be working with us on that. As far as ER, we haven't broached that. We haven't gotten there yet, but I think it's something that we definitely have in our sights. Yeah. So police force critical, and especially for clinicians, because we always are just, calling on the police. I just sent somebody yesterday, a garde provisoire for somebody. I mean, the awful thing is, I know what I'm doing, and I know what's going to happen. I even said to the lawyer, I said, this is going to go over very badly with this member of a certain community. She's already had some bad experiences. So please, can we find another? The father wanted the police to meet her in a cafe, or it was we were trying to negotiate something, but very difficult to know what to do. And I feel like I'm a pawn of the oppressor when I do this, right? Because I feel like I'm sort of I'm just doing these things. It's not because I'm not doing them because I want to. It's because there's a real clinical emergency, but we've somehow failed to find other solutions. So I think it's key question.
I have a question online or a comment. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Like, I'm the clinical activity specialist in Emerge. Just to comment that with the SPVM, we actually work with Project Immersion, and we have recruits that come in and do a daily stage to familiarize themselves with the type of clientele, the homeless population, the mental health population, to sensitize them before they get their full-time placement in their stations, just to show them that there is a large mental health population and that they should be, managed a little bit differently.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about that. If you could talk to me or send me an email, that'd be a great. We could look into working with them, see what could they give a seminar, or could they talk to us, talk to our collaborating partners. Oh, somebody.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for this talk. The theme of today is building better bridges, and I'm a psychiatrist today. I find myself thinking about how to build better bridges within psychiatry. I'm thinking about the patients who are inpatient, consultation liaison, or in the hospital, and how do you bring the cultural psychiatry approach, maybe not for everyone, but when appropriate. I feel that within my rotations, it's not something that is much reflected on. And I'm wondering about these bridges.
Yeah, there's actually a book chapter I can send you on that very question about cultural psychiatry in an inpatient setting.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, there's a place to apply cultural psychiatry. There's a way to apply cultural psychiatry everywhere. It kind of you're trying to listen to people's context, not the sort of inner workings of their mental health problem. Maybe I'm meaning like biogenetic or just medication focus. So that's one thing you can do. If you can take that approach, take a step back and look at the context. I tell residents that you're already kind of being a cultural psychiatrist. So even though you haven't had formal training, you're kind of starting on the path. And then if you really aren't sure and there's no one there that can help you, you can always call the Cultural Consultation Service. We can give you some extra resources. So it's 25655 is Antonella's extension at the Jewish General. And then sometimes we go into the hospitals and we can actually do a cultural consultation with you. And then we can answer your questions. We can also identify some resources that might be available. But just by calling Antonella, you can get a lot of help. Even resources like the MMHRC, for example, that Lawrence was talking about. Oh yeah, you call the Jewish general number and then ask for 25655. That's Andy's extension for cultural consultation. And she can often give you a lot of resources, but sometimes we see the patients as well in situ, like in the hospital or even in their home. Just depends what they need.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jarvis. Yeah, I was just thinking of our own, when we were in Kingston, Jamaica for March break, and I was the only white person in Kingston and going swimming, and this boy shouts his mother, "White person in the pool, white man in the pool." So I've experienced that reverse kind of discrimination. So it's but thinking of Jamaica and warmth, let's take a break. Yeah, I think we'll just do a 20 a 20-minute break till 10:50. So it says 10:45 on the program. Let's come back at 10:50, and that's okay. Thank you.